and welcome all eminent speaker. Okay, so this will be like a great time we will have after lunch. It is really difficult, but yes, definitely we will help you, everyone. So we are going to speak on various topics. These are the various buzzwords we are hearing, and definitely a few things you will learn from these discussions. So we can start with the hyper-converged infrastructure. So can you just define, means I request Mr. Satya to just explain a little bit about what is a hyper-converged infrastructure and how it is different from the traditional infrastructure.
Sure. Great. Thanks, Satish.
Thank you.
So let me set some context so that everybody understands just before we dive deep into what exactly it is. If you imagine any enterprise nowadays, you would have workloads distributed across multiple types of infrastructure. Now, one would be a data center, could be private cloud, could be on-premise, off-premise. There would be a bunch of SaaS applications that you're buying, managed services that you're doing. Then they would have a lot of edge type of compute or branch compute or a factory type compute. So you would have all of these different types of infrastructure. Plus, of course, most of them already started having a lot of public cloud as well, right? So it's a given that most of them have started at least whatever footprint they're able to do. Now, hyper-converged infrastructure, if you think about what is the biggest change that has happened is, imagine a data center you would go into, you will see racks and racks of hardware and of different kind sitting there, right? Now you could have network switches, you could have compute servers, you could have storage devices, storage network devices, you would have all of that. And then usually it consumes a lot of space, it has a lot of different user interface to manage these devices. So what HCI has done over the last, let's say, 6, 7, 8 years of evolutionary migration, compressed all of these layers into a single appliance. So one, obviously, you would see a huge shift in the amount of data center space. You should see a 4:1 optimization possible at a minimum, right? You could even get 10:1. But beyond that, it also gives you a software layer to manage all of these things. Now, whatever you are familiar with hypervisors and other kind of ways in which virtualization, you could get the entire appliance can be virtualized for you, right? So by putting a software layer on top, it also allows you to automate things. So you could write infrastructure as a service type, as a code type of model, which gives you opportunities to bring completely your private cloud, your on-prem cloud will look like almost like a public cloud, right? You can even think of the APIs, you can think of the same ways in which you would use your public cloud, right? So this brings a lot of productivity, brings a lot of efficiencies, cost reductions, various elements of it. I'm sure there are challenges existing, but others, I know for sure, will speak about the challenges that happen, but keep this in the context of anybody who's trying to get advantage out of HCI. There is clearly value. Knowing fully well the footsteps of how others have done it, following it would help you.
Yeah, thank you, Satya. So I would like to ask Mr. Suresh, do you have any use cases about these and you can explain about it?
Yeah, thanks. Satya has already explained that, the benefit of that. So what I'm trying to talk about is little, deeper level. So everything is now consolidated, and I'm taking into that, the single console. So everything can be managed. So that is the main advantage of that. And second point is the skill set point of view. Earlier, so when you want to manage the traditional infrastructure, we want a SAN administrator, a virtual administrator. Now we don't need as a skill set and the point of view. See, the maintaining of the skill set is also difficult for mid-size industry. So the cost of managing is little higher. So when it's like a mid-size industries. So now the hyper-converged architecture helped the, like my organizations. So it is really a, we are started adopting that. It is really benefiting us with respect to that, scalability, availability, and ease of operation. Today, none of the, the technical person is not there. So I myself was able to click and see that, what is happening inside. That level, I am confident on that the hyper-converged architecture will be the way forward, and the adoption will happen. It is already adapted. Most of the tech, industry already adapted. So while before I evaluated this, I gone through all the industry that, is it a right way to move or not. So I, myself, confident on that, okay, this architecture will help us definitely. We moved now. So now forthcoming all our infrastructure also we are going to use the hyper-converged only. So this beauty of this is earlier if you want a SAN storage, so I have to buy a enclosure and put a hardware and all. Here what I'm saying is that, I need a compute node. I need a storage node. Likewise just I am adding that, I am scaling. Yeah, I don't need any skilled person around to do all these tasks. So that is I am seeing it as a main advantage. And retaining of the skill set is difficult. Nowadays SAN storage and all. That is my key advantage of moving towards that, ease of operation point.
Okay, great. Yeah, thank you. Mitesh, I would like to ask certain things like, can you summarize certain things and also please add some considerations or challenges which we have to consider when we are transforming or changing from our normal infrastructure to this hyper infrastructure.
So let's take a step back,
Yeah.
right? Hyper-converged infrastructure and then we have cloud.
Yeah,
Both are not same.
correct.
They go hand in hand, right? Number one. Number two, when we look at now from a cost perspective, what happens is HCI, you have to invest upfront and you realize your cost benefits and ROI later.
Yeah.
Okay, it's a step-by-step process. It helps you. It's completely software defined, as Mr. Suresh said, that it is one view, single view, and so on and so forth, right? Cloud, we all know, it's pay as you go, right? Today's business demands are the ones where we have to decide whether we need HCI or we need cloud, right? Because everybody demands, or I would say business demands that we start rolling out applications super fast. And they want it real time. They expect us to deliver real time, okay? And that's where we need to decide between both. Now, cloud pay as you go, operations are, IT operations are simplified, skill set issues are, they are there in cloud, they are there in HCI as well. But the most important factor also comes into picture is the security aspect of it,
Yeah.
right? So, both have the same security issues. Misconfiguration, as a classic example, can happen in HCI as well, can happen in cloud as well.
Correct.
But from a cost operations, if we look at it, there are benefits to both. And that's why both of them go hand in hand.
Yeah. Okay,
So
thank you.
he rightly said that, this, if you go for hyper-converged, this is not ready-madely available. They will come and take what is the configuration needed. It will go to the factory and then build. This, the lead time of 7 to 8 weeks is there. So fast rollout, yes.
Okay, thank you. Rajkumar, you would like to add?
Yeah, I think I vouch for what all our colleagues are talking about. But if you typically see, when we actually look at any organization, we always look at something called what is our core and what is non-core. The reason why it has come up is that we talk about adding value to the business. And the adding value to the business comes with in terms of providing infrastructure on time, and we are taking care of the business needs where they come up with the requirements which could require more compute, we need GPUs, we need, that is not possible for us to scale it through the existing infrastructure because you cannot keep on buying certain things and utilization becomes a major issue. And the second is, as rightly said, it is all about the resources. Do we really have to have so many resources to manage so many areas as such? That becomes another question where we need to see. And so this is also something which is difficult for us to have too many resources available with us. So both the cloud as well as both of them exist because the business needs are like that. There are certain areas wherein you will not be able to expand cloud to, edge kind of areas, or I'm talking about, particularly if I take an example of our own organization, wherein we have projects where they are so remote that you cannot have everything reach to that particular point. So I think both of them coexist. Then it is all about the business call and the earlier misconception that only cloud exists, rest is all infrastructure has to be handed over to the cloud partners. No, it doesn't happen. And still, we also need to have this, mindset that we should still hold the things in our hand and we should be able to manage the infrastructure. And with these new age technologies like, where software-defined technologies helps us in rolling these things easier and have control on it. And this is what I want to add.
Thank you, Rajkumar. And this was really nice discussion. Let's move to second topic. Like last session, we had seen the Zoho platform, low code, no code. So let's discuss about something. So I asked Mr. Kapil, like how it is affecting the talent shortage in software development fields and whether it is really helping us.
Hi, thank you for the question. So I think low-code, no-code platforms are not new, right? The industry has been using it for decades now. I think we are familiar with website designers, which make it easier to make commercial websites, and we've used that for a long time. But I think what has happened is, there's been an increased interest in this particular area. So just taking a step back, and what really is a low-code, no-code platform. So it's primarily a piece of software that's built to kind of empower the citizens or empower the citizen developers. So it's, we all know that developers are a hard commodity and it's difficult to retain them and so forth, right? So to be able to empower people with no code experience or with limited coding experience to build software is really the point of a low-code, no-code platform. So yes, so in that sense, it does help kind of democratize the software development a little bit. And the other reason why it is used is to kind of hasten the cycles. We all go through a lot of difficult software development life cycles. There's design, there's architecture, then maintenance. So low-code, no-code in some cases helps to kind of skip few cycles, make it faster. But generally they do it by using visual interfaces. So you would use sort of UI, pointy-clicky interfaces to generate software. In some cases, they do it by using declarative programmatic model, which means key value pairs and so forth to kind of build software. So I think, there's a sudden interest, and now with the increase in generative AI, I sense that a new breed of low-code, no-code tools will come probably in the coming years, which will have some of those capabilities. So it's an interesting space and much to look forward to in that area.
Yeah, so you are saying that business owner or the domain expert, they can create their own application. You don't require really software engineers?
Yeah, so that is the promise. And like any promise, it is a little bit different from reality. So what I would say is they are very useful, and what I've seen in my experience is for people with limited knowledge of coding to build simpler apps quickly. They can also work on complex apps, but you may not be able to build them. What you might be able to do, let's say, so I come from a bank, we're building a loan management system, and we use a platform like, for example, Salesforce, which has some of those capabilities. We've not been able to replace developers, but what we've, to an extent, able to do is reuse a lot of functionality. So a workflow has been built for a particular loan cycle. We are able to reproduce it with minimum coding for similar different areas, right? So it helps to kind of flatten the cycles a little bit for complex projects, but for simple things like business process workflows where, for example, you are kind of trying to build, let's say the compliance department needs to build an app to manage evidences of various things, or any other document management, right? So that is a sweet spot for something like a Microsoft Power App or a similar low-code, no-code platform.
Yeah, thank you. Praful, I would like to ask you, there are various systems we are having in our company or organizations. Those are the old. So how these low-code, no-code applications will be integrated with such a systems?
Yeah, this is very critical question you asked, because now low code or no code technology, is growing in a very fast pace, and so much additions from the development. Because previously, as Kapil said, low code is not a new thing. Low code, new code is not a new thing, but it is used by the developers, software people. But now the business people is now asking, let's say I want such a small report, and it's have the multiple data points, and it goes with the normal software, traditional software development cycle. It takes time, and that requirement and the value of that requirement fizzle out. So they need a speed. So now what the question of your legacy system, this is a challenge. Now this low code and no code platforms also struggling to connect with the legacy system. Either customer have a long-term strategy to migrate that old legacy system into newer one. In our case, if I want to add it, we have made one source of truth. Our SAP S/4HANA ends up I think 3-4 age old end of life version of ours. So we migrated into the newer version, which now capable to easily connect to the local platforms. And our every company has some champions, has some good people or expert people who can think behind the Excel, MIS and all.
Yeah.
So we can use of their talent and give them platform. I am saying platform, it should not be a power apps and small application. It's a platform where everyone can come down, they will see some data, they will dice and crunch that data and make some good value MISs on the dashboards for a business requirement, for the decision making also.
Okay. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
Suresh, do you have any use cases?
See, this, I can tell that this we are giving a no-code, low-code, new name to this concept. But it is there, Microsoft Excel itself is a low-code, no-code only. So, it's not new. I mean, nowadays what is happening is lot of platform came whereby the consumer can make use of it and build it quickly. So the challenge is, according to me, till date, based on that, I don't want to name that, the platform name. But when you want to, whoever maybe talk about that, small application you may be able to build. But as an enterprise application, when you want to do, you may not be able to do. So as they rightly said that the skill set, is a problem. Now when the platform is available, anybody can build it. And the top management, suppose, today we are using it as a MIS and all. So what we can do that, they themselves can, click and do that. So the advantage is fast rollout. But I doubt that, the enterprise level application may be, all the things may not be built with a low code, no code. It may be useful for small set of applications, workflow and all can be done. That will be the limitation according to me.
Okay.
And that's what I feel so also. Thank you.
Yeah. Nitesh?
So basically, I think the first thing is that we need to decide what applications will go on low code and no code, and which are mission critical, which are not mission critical. Basis that you decide that you will adopt a low code, no code platform. Number one. Number two is that low code, no code platform also needs to follow the DevOps, DevSecOps process.
Yeah.
Because as we rightly said, it's easy, UI based, click here, click there, UI is ready, backend is always ready. But it also needs to go through the DevSecOps cycle because it can open up vulnerabilities within the application development.
Correct.
Okay? And the third and the most important point is, if you see these low code and no code platforms today, they are all provided by third party.
Yeah.
So you need to know what data would go on their cloud and how it is secure. That brings up the larger picture and larger aspect of third party risk management.
Yeah.
That's where the low code, no code platform adoption and identification of what applications and data that will reside with the third party is going to be absolutely critical.
Correct.
So that's couple of.
Yeah, thank you. I think expertise are required everywhere. It is not that anyone can start and build a application. So low code, no code platform is there, and if any expertise are required, like Zoho platform stall is there outside. So they are saying that we can also develop the enterprise level application which has been used by the Tesla and Amazon kind of thing. So definitely expertise are required if you have to use those technology. Moving forward, like as I said that there are various buzzwords, so that is a one buzzword, quantum cloud computing. Okay, so we heard, so I request Mitesh or Rajkumar to say something about that. And
No, I think we know the buzzword quantum computing. It's a mix of physics. It talks about mathematics and all. But the applicability, if you typically see, it's not. I would say it was never been relevant for our industry as such. But it will take some time. But being an engineering company, we try to utilize more GPUs and more designing part where we use a lot of things. I think there are some use cases which I have seen working out in the areas of pharma industry and all. But definitely, I think I'll add up more in case if you have something to.
So basically, it is far-fetched. It is far-fetched as of now. Yeah, but the team, those who are inventing quantum computing, they ran a contest on quantum cryptography, post-quantum cryptography, let me be specific, and that ran almost for 7 years. They actually identified 5 winners out of that, but one of the companies, I was at RSA, and I met one of this company, and they were really brilliant. That company name was Contro-P, so QANTROPI, and they had implemented quantum cryptography absolutely brilliantly. They showed us the demo as well there, and it was really fantastic. But it is still far-fetched. What we observed now, the cases or the application of that quantum computing and quantum cryptography is coming up in defense sector. Yeah. And that's where it is going to be utilized first. That's what we observe as of now.
Yeah, I think so. That is what is still in an far-fetched area. But I think we have not seen much areas which got you.
And if you guys want to try, IBM is offering quantum computing and quantum cloud free of cost. You can sign up with them. And as well as Amazon is also offering one. So you just want to try interest levels, you can just go log in, see what that does.
Yeah, Kapil, you would like to add few things?
Yeah, I would just chime in to endorse what was said by my co-panelists. It's an emerging area, and there is opportunity, like it was highlighted, right? IBM and others are offering opportunities to try out quantum computing because these machines are really expensive. So in a cloud platform where initially while your company is just exploring use cases, this is an opportunity to try out these things with certain pilots and use cases and see if there is any use case such as cryptography that was mentioned that you could use it for. And then there are other use cases like molecular physics and various use cases which may or may not be relevant to your company, but we are just starting to explore as a bank to try and see what it can do for us.
Yeah, thank you, Kapil. As you rightly said that particularly in the fundamental research laboratories, this quantum computing is used, like CERN is one where hadron collision is happening in Geneva, underground facilities where quantum computing is used, where thousands of GB data is generated in 1 second. That is a volume they are having, and there to even satellite operations and other things, quantum computing is there. And as you rightly said that molecular, like in the COVID case, we develop vaccine. So that cycle time we can reduce with this quantum technologies where so many permutation combinations and the calculations we can do. So we really know that how these particular molecules is going to behave in a particular area or the situation, and we can really reduce that particular timeline. Yeah, thank you for that. So let's move to the next topic, ESG, that is environmental, social and governance. So I request Mr. Satya to speak on this.
So I think India, as those who are, some of the guys are in the from the banking and regulatory sectors should be more familiar with this. But broadly, ESG is going to be fairly important for every business in India, right? Whether, of course, it will become increasingly more important for public companies or companies that are likely to go public. Plus, I think eventually, any company which wants to attract investment, right? Because the generation of investors nowadays are looking at your ESG scores to decide to invest or not, right? So that becoming a key criteria means that it's not just because of regulatory reasons I have to be ESG compliant, but I have to be compliant with ESG or at least be aware of the obligations me as a business have to comply with the ESG norms. Because I would like to attract investment. So it could be applicable to a startup, in let's say a new energy startup wants to do something. It has to be compliant with it, right? So the utility of tools and stuff, I think it is still a long way to go. There are not too many rules defined by, for example, how does the exact scoring mechanism work, right? The framework for scoring. Who are the ESG reporting providers or ESG rating providers type people, right? What are the regulations for them? All these are all work in progress, but I think anybody, I would say people have to keep this in their to-do list of stuff. Once the compliance requirements start, it will come very fast. Okay. So that means keep the data ready. So if you want to have a computational done for your ratings, keep the data ready. Start working on it. Most of the frameworks are already published, so you should be able to find out, for example, on this parameter, what should be my data requirement in order to calculate the score. How does this particular contributing parameter will help me achieve a better score, right? Where will I want to stand? Do I want to get a AAA, AA? Do I want to be aware of it? So I think every organization should just become aware of it and start preparing the data, and the day when things become essential, I think they'll be more prepared for it rather than saying, okay, let's go scramble, find a consultant, help us, right? So
good. And now government has also done the mandatory thing for ESG, so everyone has to must do kind of thing.
Absolutely.
So Johnson, would you like to add few things and give us some more use cases?
Sure. We presently at Subway and our culinary brands, we kind of preparing ourselves to get into this compliance of ESG. And there are few areas, even the government is going to bind us to adopt the invoicing also going online. I think it's somewhere around September or so, there's a norm that's going to come out where we have to go online invoicing, which means our checks should also be sent through an SMS and such criteria. So we are preparing ourselves in that areas, as well as there are a lot of workflow automations which comply with generating a lot of papers in the ecosystem, which again forms part of certain parameters. And this paper consumption is also, we are trying to reduce it using our certain set of application that we have built in. And in our ecosystem, you may see very less papers that you see unless the legal team is printing it, or someone else who wants a print of it. Otherwise, you try cutting off all those areas where we have started preparing ourselves to get compliant.
In terms of benefits, what you are thinking, what we will achieve?
See, in terms of benefit, only using papers, that's just one example of it. There will be a lot of things that we can achieve by doing this. Is you can create a social awareness. Also, you make money out of it. That's what the business IT should think about. I use an SMS, I make money out of it because I can generate an initiative where I could give out some promotional things through an SMS rather than printing and pasting it somewhere else, and that goes unnoticed. This will go into your mobiles in terms of WhatsApp or SMS, and I can again generate the customer loyalty, a lot of other things which will come automatically through it.
Good. Are there any challenges and obstacles, Mr. Praful, to implement this ESG?
See, ESG, as Satya rightly said, now government also, because mix of many ministries are that ESG asking about data crossing with the other this thing. They are asking security. They are asking taxation. They are touching all the aspects of the data. So so ESG is now from the government perspective. They are very firm about they are going to do the mandatory for all. Actually, public limited companies are now mandatory for certain the turnovers and all. So what we see an ESG, we receive the formats and we receive the data. We like the what they are drafting, the way they have 6 categories where we need to publish our data. In one category, they have added some security data also, where you have exposed customer data.
Yeah.
So this is really good, where some governance coming from the government to the commercial people, and that data need to be sanitized, and their audit is not happening now. We are just reporting mode we are. But in future, definitely the audit will happen, and that data of customer and the security will be tightened because of this, arrangement of this. An obstacle, what we are saying, people are, as there are so much categories and so much data points, so people also struggling to collect that data and submit it.
Okay.
You won't find, even I have seen many balance sheets and ESG reports where they don't report anything because nothing has happened. Still, something is out of, Sun Pharma also exposed. So I don't know how the extent they reported on that ESG data. So this is the data collection and the guidelines coming from the government, and the people also aligned to that data preparation, because everything is already done, and now government asking that data is quite difficult. So
whatever you are doing, you have to prove as a supporting document.
So now people are now adopting that and keeping that data for the future audit purpose.
Thank you. And Suresh, do you have anything like Dr. Batra's lab?
Not Dr. Batras. My earlier airline industry, today we are talking about this ESG compliant. So, 20 years before this was already a mandate thing. We have to report that, carbon emission. So now, it is come in the form of standard format. Earlier we used to give every day night that, how much carbon emission has happened the particular day. So that's the way we used to report. I mean, now it has become the ESG compliant.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. So let's move to the next topic. OpenAI is much bigger than the just ChatGPT. So I think everyone will be interested to know about it. So I can start with you.
Yeah.
Satya.
So I would say, again, like we talked about, it's favorite topic for everybody. I'm sure nobody would say, I don't know what it is, right? But first thing is, instead of repeating what I would suggest, that Sam Altman was been in India yesterday, so you all should see the video of the questions. It's a good lengthy one, 45 minutes to an hour, fairly large set of questions got answered. So, but most important is every organization must be setting up a team which looks at the opportunities to use OpenAI, specifically ChatGPT or even beyond, but clearly generative AI, what is its abilities to contribute to its business, right? Every organization will be forced to demonstrate productivity improvements as a result of consumption, right? It will be forced on people. So let's say an investor could ask you, saying that, hey, show me that, hey, how are you using OpenAI to show me that you're improving stuff? So bottom line is that first, everybody should be clear. And second is, given that there are no governance or there are no specific regulatory requirements as such, what Sam Altman is also asking all the governments to get involved and define regulatory guardrails to use to define the consumption of it, because every technology can be good and bad. So very clearly, which is similar to an organization as well. So every business should have a defined guardrails of where you can use and where you cannot use, for what you can use and what you cannot use. And second thing is establishing the veracity of it, right? So let's imagine that an annual report is getting published by a business and somebody consumed the ChatGPT's interface to produce something, and which was not validated by anybody, went outside, and that results in issue. So it means that it is obligatory for the business to make sure that they are having their own guardrails to protect downwards. But beyond that, I think everybody knows what exactly it is or what is able to do. Everybody had asked some questions and tried it out. So I don't want to repeat what it is, but I would suggest this is what everybody should do.
So I would like Kapil to add few more things and effectiveness of this ChatGPT for the business.
Right. So like Satya alluded, right, OpenAI is one company that made a product on generative AI, specifically the GPT 3.5 and GPT 4 models, right? And they primarily revolve around NLP, or natural language processing, even though GPT 4 can take in images as well. But that is just the first one that in November 22 released their GPT 3.5 and allowed everyone to use it for free, which really broke the internet, broke everything else, right? And everybody now uses it. It was the fastest to 1 million users, fastest to 10 million users, and we're still counting, right? So, but there are, in terms of NLP, what really is it used for? It is primarily text generation and text processing. Text processing could mean text analysis, text summarizing, text searching, classification, and so forth, right? So primarily it can be used across the entire gamut of different use cases. OpenAI also has these other models like Codex, which can generate code, right? Which can be used in by IT departments to generate a level of code which can make the actual coding process a little bit faster. Then there are models like image generation models like DALL-E 2. With text prompts, they could generate images, which could be used for marketing for one, or sales, right? So I'm sure these are familiar by now and people have been using it. I think Bing, or the Microsoft search engine, has incorporated DALL-E 2 for their image creator product that they've launched. So in addition to OpenAI, there are others as well, right? Google has Bard, which is now free and uses the PAM2 model, right? Similarly, AWS recently launched a few of the open source models and made it easier to kind of use in enterprises like Stability AI and others, right? And they also have their own model. So at the bottom of it, there is a LLM, or a large language model, which is usually difficult to build for most organizations. So generally the best practice that gets spoken about is, do not try to build your own model, own large model, unless you know what you're doing and there is a specific use cases. One of the salient features of generative AI is it is emergent. It has emergent ability, which means it can learn things which you did not specifically taught them, right? So there was recently in the news that Google AI, only after a few Bangla prompts, it was able to translate totally in Bangla without really being given so much of training, right? So that ability, the emergent ability, makes this technology easier to use with limited sort of training or learning, called zero-shot learning or few-shot learning, which makes it easier to use with, already you can consider it as someone who has a Stanford degree and knows everything there is to know, right? But then with great power comes responsibility, right? So the industry is still figuring out how to deal with some of the problems that might be there, right? Like hallucination gets spoken about, which is generating inaccurate or nonsensical responses which you didn't expect. There are ways to tone that down. So for example, with OpenAI, if you use it There are ways to kind of reduce the temperature. So there's a trade-off between temperature and creativity, which is how creative you want the model to be while responding versus how much it will hallucinate. So if it is more creative, there is more risk of something like hallucination. So there are ways to mitigate it. Then the other problems like black box. We do not always understand, because of this emergent ability, how exactly did it find that answer. So again, there are ways to control it. There are ways to, like how, for example, the Bing search does, or even Bard for that example, it matches website results and tries to give you the source of where that information came from. But I think there's a long way to go, but you, like Satya alluded to it, you cannot ignore it. You need to be using it, practicing, trying to use it for a variety of use cases. Interesting times, and I think we'll learn more and we'll get more familiar with the technology as months pass.
Yeah. Mitesh, I just wanted to ask you, like, what are these advantage or disadvantage of using these technologies?
I think there is a classic example that happened last 15 days back. One of the lawyers, he actually presented a case and he went to ChatGPT, searched for all those cases, relevant cases, referenced them directly. He thought it was a shortcut. And then when it went to the court and then they were validating, all those references were wrong.
Oh.
Okay? He actually was going to be barred from being a lawyer. Okay? So, where to use and what information to use and how to use it is also important. Okay? So, and there is, let's talk about AI and then OpenAI, right? And then generative AI and all of that. So, there is a hard push. A lot of technology vendors that we are also working with use AI to automate the processes, to automate a lot of stuff. Even classic example can be even in a security operations center, managing all those logs that are coming in, identifying, taking the AI path and automating the L1 part of it, incident handling, incident management. So there are a lot of these cases, right, where AI is positively used per se. Yeah. But if we are only going to be dependent on ChatGPT and the OpenAI model, then it's a question mark. Yeah. Because recently, again, earlier you can actually, you used to ask, you can ask ChatGPT to represent as, let's say, Rajkumar, and say, hey, can you enact as Rajkumar and then try and hack into a system, for example. They realized that that was a mistake and they actually blocked it. Okay. Similarly, if you go and you say, I want to do a pen test on xyz.com, it will immediately, ChatGPT would say, no, this is unethical, all of that story. But if you ask ChatGPT, hey, can you help me configure burp suit to check this website? It will give you the full process.
Correct.
Okay? And that's interesting, right? That's part of, because it is education. Okay? But all of this can be used in a positive and a negative way as well. But large language models are here to stay. Yeah. You can use the large language models within your enterprise. You can implement it yourself, basis the knowledge if you have, and the developers if they have the knowledge to implement large language models, because there's a lot of data. And today we want immediate answers for a few things. Any organization, if you take, it's already data is just getting generated, okay, in bytes, zettabytes, and all of that. So what happens is to span that, to crawl that data, to learn that data, and give you accurate answers to the data that belongs to you is going to be there. Whether you use OpenAI for it, whether you use Bard for it, whether you build any open source LLM models that are available today. But that is here to stay. And that is something that all of us we need to have some roadmap towards that.
Correct. So data is available, information is available, but human intelligence is required. What right questions we have to ask to get the right answer.
Absolutely.
Yeah, Suresh?
So in my case, as he said rightly that, the data which is the large language model learned of the cases and the whatever may be reference. He rightly said that, if you have a roadmap for large model or in our organization, we are having a huge data. We are having 2 projects right now. So what is happening is we are having a 30 years of, the doctor case taking process and what medication given to them. So now this is clear mapping is there. So for example, a 46 years old patient, so with this symptom, so this is a solution. So the label data is available with that mapping. So the large language model will read all the cases, whatever, similarity is available. It will throw that, it may not replace the doctor. But this large language model may help my organization to prescribe medicines and whether it is up to, doctors to take it or not. But that will be the use case we are working on as a large language model. And second case is to respond to all the customer queries, because all are standard queries. We know that, what is the cost of this treatment. So our ChatGPT can respond back to them.
So ChatGPT is not going to replace the job, but the person who is using the ChatGPT may replace you.
No, also what's happening is ChatGPT is going to make us more lazy.
Yeah.
Because we are not going to apply our brains.
Correct.
And that's where the biggest challenge is going to come up in the next generations.
This content creator is mostly using that. The creativity will go. What the machine is giving, we'll just take it. We'll not apply our mind on top of that. That's the main, the laziness and.
Okay. So this was a really great discussions. Let's move to the next topic. How far will 5G adoption contribute to real-time visibility? Mr. Rajkumar.
See, I think like any other technologies, we are talking about 5G is still something which will take more time, because infrastructure and everything has to support us to deploy this at the use cases within the organizations as such. I mean, if you see the way, every organization, the maturity of the organizations, if you typically see, let me take my example of our own maturity in terms of saying what needs to be done. So we created something called 2 years roadmap to see how do we actually build the network part, which includes your infrastructure modernization, and all. So we have to look at what is the as is situation today. And if you see before pandemic, most of the organizations used to have their own centralized internet, struggling with, you talk about video conferencing, trying to expand everything at a supply chain, trying to reach out to your, everything has to get, adopted. Every technology which we look at today has to be sequentially, has to be adopted. So one stage after the other. First we need to see, before pandemic there was a scenario wherein the internet was not much used within the organizations. It was only intranet which was extensively used. So then we need to see how, that's where we said internet usage has gone up 80% to 20%. So earlier it used to be 80% versus 20%. So now it's the other way. So you need to revamp yours, the entire infrastructure in such a fashion that whatever the use cases which are building up, the kind of quantum of data which is getting built right now. If you typically look at all the new age technologies, whether it is AI, it needs extensive data to be, and also we should be able to reach out. So whatever is the need of the day, then accordingly we should start planning our things. So like wherever we need local breakouts, and other important aspects which is important over here is the security. With the moment you have the quantum of data, if you see, I was just looking at a survey wherein more than 80 to 85% of the data which got generated was only in last 3-4 years. So this will exponentially increase, because now if you really wanted to allow business to take more decisions, the decisions will come from the shop floor, the decisions will come from the end places where we execute projects. They come through, all the sources. So the number of sources are getting increased, and this will increase the data to be collected, and to process it, you need better networks. And we have actually tried with few of the 5G networks, but I think it is all in the infant stage right now. So today what we are talking about is how do we Other important aspects which is bothering all of us is how do we actually create an enterprise architecture today? Because the architecture which we planned for 2 years ago is need to be scrapped right now. Because if you say any location, for example, even your plants whichever you have, and you want to expand where you wanted to put in your materials as such. Some of the typical examples, because where it is not open, it is like an open yard where you need to keep a lot of things. So how do you get them into the mainstream? And how do you want it to get the project sites connected back to your to the mainstream? So where, I mean, we are laying power lines, so you can't expect internet to be available over there. And how do we actually expand the networks? We are talking about track and trace, because assets are lying which are of, heavy assets which are lying across all the locations. How do you actually track and trace? There are a lot of use cases on which we are working to see how we can effectively utilize the networks so that we can reach onto the endpoints and get the data from that, and they should be able to use the data. So that is where the real challenges comes in, right?
Okay, yeah, thank you. So let's move to next topic. We are having another 5 minutes.
Oh, okay.
So how are super apps helping in IT cost cutting, Johnson?
So just to add here, the concept, if you see on the web or anywhere, there are a lot of definitions scattered what they are. Technically, if I understand it right, it is it's kind of a platform. Super app is a platform where a lot of mini apps comes and sit together. And there have been a lot of such tools which came in the past time, then have grown as a good super app. And there are times, when certain apps, which as an app also helps you transact the bankings also. So today, if you see, there are specific app which is made for bank is sometimes less used than an app which is, sitting on inside a super app. Yeah. Kind of a Paytm, if you see, it has shopping, it has transactions. I don't go out and do my transaction for a bank transaction. I do it directly from Paytm, for example. Similarly, at the enterprise level, if you see such super apps needs to be enabled, enterprise needs to think about it, but not at that scale, like, where it becomes more commercial at this time. But then what I feel, such super apps, if for in my instance, in Subway, we were given a box of 55 applications from the global team, which had to be reduced to a certain number of apps into multiple mini apps. So we created a platform. That's not a low code, that's not a no code. It's properly full code setup that we had. And in that, what we did is we built a lot of applications. It again, all points that we discussed in the past all comes together and fall back there, where there is workflow, where there is processes, where there are tools which is required to be, into one box, rather than, people moving out here and there and using multiple tools, different logins, different. So single sign-on is first, something that you need to concentrate into super apps. So when you have a single sign-on, you can again plug in some third-party applications and then again connect internally with them through an API, or you can use an OpenAI intelligence there and then connect to that third-party application from that single sign-on. That's what our roadmap is. And we presently are with about 15 modules sitting inside, which takes care of our commercial feasibility, BD tools, and a lot of such applications which talk to each other. And earlier it was all Excel-driven, mails-driven. People had to send mails and take approvals. Everything is automated now. So again, it goes towards that ESG, what we were thinking about. We are trying to build our roadmap so that we become compliant to that. So super app is something there. It's a platform for me. It's a platform where a lot of mini apps sit, and all enterprise needs to think about it. Because not everything is available off the shelf. You need to think about certain tools which you need specifically for your business. That needs to come into some form of phase, and you need to build it here and bring it to a common platform, and then connect to the application that you're using from any off-the-shelf market products.
Yeah, thank you. Mitesh, can you just tell me what are the different drawbacks or challenges we may face?
See, actually, super apps, yes, it is needed. Okay, have they worked in a consumer space? That's still a question mark. I think Tata Neu would be one of the classic examples per se that they have built, and they have tried to build, getting big baskets of the world and 1MGs of the world, everything together in one single app. The objective is that why they are here to stay is because instead of having multiple apps on the same phone, using the real estate that is available, people not using it, consuming the super app or the apps, individual independent apps, was a challenge, right? And getting now, obviously, the phone manufacturers also have come back and said that, okay, unused apps are going to get offloaded,
Yeah.
right? So when that offloading happens, that means it is out of mind, out of this, right? Nobody's going to use that. So only when needed, the app started getting used, per se. Super app came into picture because while I am using one app, I have the eye on the other widget or the smaller app component within the larger app, right?
Correct.
So that was the objective, making users use multiple apps and making them use and driving revenues over those multiple business models or offerings that a company has. So super apps are here to stay, but its adoption and usage still will be dependent on how much a user needs it.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Praful, like how are business leveraging workflow automation? So you can throw some light on this.
See, actually, workflow automation is now necessary. After the COVID, everything on the cloud, we got the good platforms. So anything, let's say we want to give an experience to our business people, let's say procure to pay. It's a simple process we have evaluated last 2-3 months. And we found it with this workflow, we will save our multiple email communications, Excel exchange, PDF exchange, and bring it on that, one platform. And I would say we are now evaluated one platform which is low code and included with the workflow automation. And now with this, we will be saying there is a huge saving on my SAP licenses.
Okay.
I think I'll be 40% on my SAP license I could save with this platform. This is the power of workflow automations. We can bring it to our business.
Okay, this is the last question. Like I would like to ask Mr. Suresh, like what are the consideration or the best practices we have to follow for this workflow automation?
Yeah, best practice when when you are defining that application, so that time itself we should be very clear on that, and whatever the flow you are defining should be easy to change and all. It should not be any hard coded things. For example, purchase PO approval. Today X person is there. Tomorrow Y person has to be replaced. So you should be in a customized way. See, that I found as a major things in my during the time of development time. So that was the major things we should take care of that. Otherwise in the initial stage itself your mindset is very clear that what are the flow should be there. It should be easily you can include, exclude, change. All should be flexible enough to do that.
Okay, thank you. So thank you all. It was really very nice discussion and hope everyone is enjoyed. From audience, if there are any questions, definitely after these sessions they can ask them. Okay, thank you.